Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. I'm going to show you this clip and then I'm going to continue with my commentary on the other side.
School. Now, what happened yesterday, I can't address that, but I can address what's happened in the past with him.
Sheriff Dr. Randolph said earlier this afternoon that he felt that race was a factor in this incident. Based on your understanding of how things unfolded, do you see any indication that race should be a component of this discussion?
I don't know. It's difficult to say that, and I guess in one way I make that decision based on personal knowledge about this deputy. He's been dating an African-American female for quite some time now. And so does that have a bearing on his thought process? It may have. But I would think that would have it on a positive way and not on a negative way. So I don't know. There's been no indication of that. He's never expressed that in the past. We've never seen that. It really doesn't matter to me if that child has been purple. It's what his actions are, and that's what we're concerned about.
We're all familiar with this case by now. You have a white police officer who grabbed an African American teenage girl around the neck while she was sitting in a chair. He flipped the chair backwards, slamming her to the ground. And then he grabs her, pulls her, drags her, tosses her, and then puts her in cuffs. Violently tosses a girl and puts her in handcuffs. He does this simply because she refused to get out of her chair. She didn't pose any kind of threat to anyone. She wasn't engaged in a fight. She didn't have a weapon. She didn't threaten anyone. This is merely over the fact that she would not get out of her chair. And in response to this issue, when the sheriff was questioned about what happened, when he was questioned about whether or not this was an act of racism, he had the audacity to suggest that this stinking pig is not racist, simply because the pig is dating an African American woman. Simply because the pig is swirling. And for many people who are familiar with this channel, you all know what that term means. That means engaging in interracial relationships. So merely because this pig, this officer, is dating an African American woman, you have this sheriff suggesting that somehow that means that that pig is not racist. The mere fact that a white man is putting his penis in a black woman's vagina, that alone does not mean that he is not racist. The fact that he is supposedly engaged in a relationship with that black woman doesn't mean that he is not racist. The slave masters used to rape and abuse our women all the time. They would have children with their slaves. Of course, that did not make them not racist. Of course, they continued to hold our people in bondage. Of course, they continued to oppress our people. We have the example of one of the founders of your nation, Thomas Jefferson. In this man's lifetime, he had over 600 slaves. He regularly maintained 130 slaves. 130 slaves he had on his plantation to serve his needs. And one of those slaves, Sally Hemings, he actually had sexual relationship with this slave. Did that make him non-racist or anti-racist? Of course not. How could he be anything other than racist when he held hundreds of slaves? Not only did he own them, I'm sure they were beaten just like other slaves, raped just like other slaves, abused just like other slaves, oppressed and exploited and treated like animals just like any other slave. And this same man wrote these beautiful documents of independence and civil rights and all that stuff in the Bill of Rights while he held down and oppressed black people. So the mere fact that somebody has some relationship with a black person means absolutely nothing. It means nothing. And we have a more up-to-date example of this. We have the example of the staunch segregationist Strom Thurmond. This man was opposed to civil rights for black people. This man held the longest filibuster ever by a lone senator against civil rights. 24 hours this man filibustered against civil rights. He opposed civil rights legislation in 1964 and 1965. Basic civil rights legislation to make us citizens in this country, to give us the same rights as everybody else, to be able to drink at a water fountain, to be able to sit wherever we want on the bus, to be able to go to a restaurant, to be able to go to the schools in our neighborhoods without being segregated, to be able to go somewhere without seeing no colored signs, no signs that said no colors, no Jews, and no dogs. Just for that basic human dignity and respect. This segregationist, racist devil opposed those things. And while he was a staunch segregationist, a racist, this man had an affair with his black maid by the name of Carrie Butler. So the mere fact that somebody has some kind of relationship means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. And then not too long ago, I came across this article in Essence about this black woman who had an interracial relationship. She was married to a white man. And she said this white man did all kinds of wonderful things for her. But she also talked about how this white man used racial slurs against his own wife, against her, referring to her as a nigger bitch, talking about her pubic hair, describing it as Negro bush. He referred to himself as a nigger lover. He would use these kind of racist slurs when he would have sexual relations with his wife. So obviously this man had racism in his heart despite the fact that he had a black wife. For him, blackness was just a fetish, much like any other fetish, sexual fetish that people have. So the fact that this man is dating a black woman means nothing. It means absolutely nothing at all. We know good and damn well that this is all about race. Do you think that that stinking pig would have thrown that girl across the room, slammed her down and thrown her across the room if she was white with blue eyes and blonde hair and her name was Becky? Do you really think that he would have done that? Do you really think that you would have these Negro apologists defending this conduct if that girl was white? Do you really think all these racist, no good devils would be going out of their way to protect that stinking pig and to defend his conduct if that girl was white? Do you really think that CNN would be asking questions about what happened before that incident if that girl was white? Do you really think you would have these stepping, fetching house Negroes like Don Lemon trying to rationalize this nonsense if that girl was white? Of course not. This is all about race. And it is completely irrelevant that this pig swirls.